This video goes over the notes for substitution. This problem reads like this. G of x is equal to 2x minus 3. Find g of 1. This is called function notation. It's a different way to write functions. You can translate this as y is equal to 2x minus 3. That g of x just means y. And when they say find g of 1, that means plug in 1 for x. So I'm going to write it like this. And notice I put a set of parentheses where the x used to be. Everything is the exact same, except I put parentheses where x was. What goes in the parentheses? The 1 does. First I do my multiplication. 2 times 1 is 2. Then I do my subtraction, and my answer is negative 1. I can write this as negative parentheses plus 4. I'm going to plug in the minus 6. Since there are two negatives here, I'm taking negative 1 times a negative 6, which gives me a positive 6. I add the 4 and I get 10. Let's write this as negative 5 parenthesis minus 2, and we'll plug this into the parentheses. You can also think of this just like negative 5 times negative 1, which gives me 5, minus 2 gives me 3. 3 times parenthesis plus 4, take this, plug it in. 3 times 0 is 0 plus 4, which is just 4. Negative 5 times x plus 3, I replace x with the parenthesis. I plug this in, I put a 2 there. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. Add the 3, I'm at negative 7. This next section, we can follow these 3 steps. First we will substitute, then we'll solve a letter. It's usually going to be x first for this section, and then we're going to find the solution for the other letter, and we'll write our answer like this. So when we do our substitution, we're looking for a letter all by itself with a 1 in front of it, like this one. And we're going to come to the shorter equation, which is this bottom one, and I'm going to take everything that y is equal to and put it into the other equation in place of y. This will be negative 2x is equal to 2x plus 24. And step 1 is done. I have substituted. Now I'm just going to solve for x. That's the only letter here. We're going to move the x's over to the left. Now, you could solve this a couple of different ways. You could follow different paths, but this is going to give you the answer the quickest. We now have negative 4x is equal to 24. We'll divide by whatever's in front of the letter, and we get x is equal to negative 6. Looking ahead to my eventual answer, this one is going to go here in the x spot. To find the other letter, I'm going to take one of my original equations. So let's erase this, and again I'm going to choose the smaller one. So I'll choose this one. If I write y equals negative 2x, I can replace x with what it's equal to. So I'll put some parentheses and plug this number in, negative 6. Y is equal to 12, and I will write that down here for my solution. So those are the 3 steps and how you do substitution. First step here is set them equal to each other. So I'm going to take what y is equal to and plug it into the other. At this point, I want to get x by itself. It's on both sides of the equal sign, so let's add the 2x over here, which will cancel it out on the right. And I have 6x is equal to 30. We'll divide by whatever's in front of the variable, so that we have x is equal to 5. Halfway there. If we wanted to, we could write down our potential answer and carefully put the 5 there in the right spot. Next up, I'm going to go back to my original 2 equations. I'm going to choose the smaller one, this one, and let's rewrite it. So y is equal to 4, and instead of x, I'll put parentheses, because I'm going to plug this in here. I'm going to put a 5. So this tells me that y is equal to 20. I can write that down, and this is my final answer. Number 8, let's set the 2 equal to each other. So this is substituted in for y in the other equation. Next, let's move over the 2x by subtracting to cancel it out because it was positive. Let's divide by whatever's in front of the letter, which is an 8 here. We have x is equal to negative 2. That's half of our answer. So if I was to write x comma y, negative 2 goes in right here. Let's go back to my original equation and use the smaller one over here. And instead of x, I'm going to put a parenthesis. And we can plug in what x is equal to, which is negative 2. And this tells me that y is equal to negative 20, which goes down here in the y spot. This is my final answer. First, let's set the equations equal to each other by substituting in 5x for y. Let's move over the 9x. We want all of the x's to be on the same side, so this gives me negative 4x on the left and positive 4 on the right. We'll divide by whatever's in front of the letter, and this tells us that x is equal to negative 1. We're halfway there. So if I was to put this into my final answer, it would go here in the x column. Let's go back to our original equations, choose the smaller one, and let's rewrite it. Y is equal to 5 times parentheses. Instead of x, I'll put parentheses, and let's plug this in, negative 1. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. We'll write that down here, and this is our final answer. First up, we substitute in for y. So we have 2x is equal to 8x minus 6. We are going to subtract 8x from both sides. This moves all of the x terms to the left side. Then I'm going to divide by whatever's in front of x. And this leaves me with x is equal to 1. I'm halfway there, so if I put my potential answer down here, the 1 goes right there. And let's go back to the original equations and think about using the smaller one. So if I have y is equal to 2 times x, I could put parentheses there instead of an x, and I'll put a 1. This tells me that y is equal to 2, and there's my final answer. Number 11 changes the problem. Before, we had y equals for every single equation, so it was easier to do step 1, the substitution. To start off, we're going to look at all of the letters and take a look at, first of all, do they have a number in front of them? This one does, and this one does. Are they by themselves on one side of an equation? This one is not by itself. So the one we're going to focus on is actually this one right here. And what that tells us is, in the other equation, we're going to substitute for y. So let's write that second equation, but instead of writing the entire thing, I'm going to write it like this. Most of this is identical. The x, the minus 7, the minus 48. The only thing that's different is I replaced y with parentheses. And we can plug in this 7x into the parentheses. After that, first we multiply. This is rewritten as 49x is equal to negative 48. If I combine like terms, this tells me that negative 48x is equal to negative 48. That's like 1 minus 49. Then I divide by a negative 48 on both sides. This tells me that x is equal to 1. So if I think about my final answer, x comma y, 1 is going to go over here. Let's go back to my original two equations and choose the smaller one. Plug it over here. Y is equal to 7 times parentheses. We're going to plug in that 1. Y is equal to 7. And there's our final answer. Number 12, if you look at our variables, this one has a number. We're not going to focus on that. This one has a negative. This is our letter that's all by itself on one side of the equal sign, and it's positive. So let's erase these. And that tells me that when I write my other equation, I'm not going to write an x. Instead, I'm going to put parentheses. And I will plug into that this value right here. That's what x is equal to. So we have negative 9y after I multiply, minus 7y is equal to negative 16. Combine like terms, I have negative 16y is equal to negative 16. Divide by whatever's in front of the letter, and I have y is equal to 1. Half of my answer is there. Notice for this one, the 1 goes as the second number, not the first one. because I write this as x comma y. All of the other ones, it was in the other order, so be careful when you're doing that step. This is the smaller equation, so I'm going to write something like negative parentheses is equal to x. That way, I can put in what y is equal to where y used to be. This tells me that negative 1 is equal to x, and that goes right here. First, I choose which letter is going to be substituted. I do this by looking for which one is all by itself. This has numbers and negatives. It's this one. So that means I'm going to write the other equation, but instead of writing x, I'll put parentheses. And then this 4y gets copied into that spot. I multiply negative 4 times 4y. I combine like terms. I add negative 16 minus 1, and I get negative 17y. I divide by whatever's in front of the letter, and I get y is equal to negative 1. So if I think about my eventual answer, that negative 1 is going to go right here, in the y position. Next up, let's choose the smaller equation, that's this one, and bring it over here. So I'm going to replace y with some parentheses. I'm going to plug in this negative 1 right here. This tells me that negative 4 is equal to x, and that is what I write down here. Here's my final answer. So the letter I'm going to choose is this one because it's 1x all by itself. That means I'm going to be replacing the x in the other equation. So let's write it like this. And let's put that value in here, that minus 4y. First I multiply. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. Make sure you write the y there. Let's combine like terms. This gives me negative 2y. Let's divide by whatever's in front of the letter. Y is equal to 1. So if I think about what my eventual answer will look like, 1 is going to go there. Let's go back to my original equations and choose the smaller one. And let's rewrite it, but instead of a y, we're going to put parentheses. And then we'll plug in what y is equal to, which is 1. So this tells me that negative 4 is equal to x, which is what I'll write here. And there's my final answer. I'm going to start here with this y because it's all by itself, and I know that I'm going to plug it into the other equation. So I'm going to write it like this, negative 4x minus 6 parenthesis equals negative 48. It's almost the exact same thing, and then I plug in this minus 2x right here. First up, I multiply. So negative 6 times negative 2 is a positive 12. I put the x there with it. If I combine like terms, I have 8x is equal to negative 48. If I divide both things by 8, I have x is equal to negative 6, and I'm halfway done. If I was thinking about how to write my answer, I'd put a negative 6 here, and now I have to find my y value. So let's choose one of our original equations. I like to use the smaller one. And instead of writing an x, I can write parentheses, because that's what I will be filling in for, negative 6. So negative 2 times negative 6, parentheses means multiply, is 12. There's our final answer. The last section is very similar, but instead of plugging in one number, we're plugging in an expression. So we still start here by saying, let's plug in for x. We're going to plug it into this other equation, 6 parentheses minus 2y equals 26. But we're going to have to leave a little bit more space because what we're plugging in is an entire expression, negative y plus 3. Then we have to remember how to distribute. So you draw these little arrows, and first you do 6 times negative y. That's negative 6y. Then you do 6 times 3. That's plus 18. And you rewrite the rest of the equation. If I combine like terms, I have negative 8y, negative 6 minus 2, plus 18 is equal to 26. I'm now at a two-step equation. Minus 18 from both sides. I have negative 8y is equal to 8. The last step is to divide by whatever's in front of the letter. Y is equal to negative 1. So if I think about what my eventual answer will be, I know there's going to be x comma y, and I put the negative 1 right there. Let's go back and find out what x is. So I'm going to use the smaller equation, and let's plug it in over here. And wherever there's a y, I'm going to put a parenthesis. Everything else copies the same. So that I'm going to plug in here a negative 1. Negative times negative is going to be positive 1 plus 3 is equal to x, or 4 is equal to x, which is what I will write here for my final answer. Number 17, I know that y is by itself, so I'm going to plug that into the other equation. When I rewrite the top equation, I'm going to put parentheses where the y was. I'll leave a little bit more space this time because I have to plug in this entire expression, negative 6x minus 5. Now there's no distributing here because there'd be a 1, and 1 times anything is not going to change it. So I can just go ahead and start combining like terms. My x terms can be combined. 3 minus 6 is negative 3x. Everything else just carries down exactly as written. Now I have a two-step equation. Add 5 to both sides. Negative 3x is equal to 24. Divide by negative 3 on both sides. X is equal to negative 8. That's half of my answer. So if I think about what my eventual coordinate will be, x goes here in the first column. And let's use one of our original equations to figure out what y is. It's starting to get harder to figure out which one is shorter. I might choose this top one. Let's write 3 parentheses plus y is equal to 19. That's because I'm plugging in the x value here. If I multiply, this gives me negative 24 plus y is equal to 19. If I add 24 to both sides, I get 43 for my answer. The final answer is negative 8, 43.